Ian, what's up, buddy?
What's up, dude? We're live.
Yeah, baby. You got a fun topic today about creating momentum through partnerships, deals, capital, construction, and more. We're going to tune in, talk about a recent conversation that we just had with a real estate investor. I think everyone's going to love it. So going to go to the theme music real quick. Hang on 5 seconds and we'll start the show.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
And we are back. All right. So let me just start off the show with this, and then we'll kind of dive into some of these individually. Momentum is such a big, important word, and I feel like so many people miss out on momentum, right? You got to be constantly marketing for deals, constantly meeting new real estate investors, constantly interviewing new contractors and vendors and creating partnerships and much, much, much more. That's what it is. It's momentum, right? You know, we're grinding and working every day, right? We're grinding, right? Constantly every day. We're staying in front of as many folks as we can. We're doing what we can in order to be involved in this business, right? You know, I actually was on another podcast, had a few podcasts there.
You had a busy day, boy.
I had a podcast earlier today, and this guy was telling me, he was like, you know what, Jason? He's like, I haven't really had to get down and dirty to find deals in a long time because I've been around and I put in so much heavy lifting. I have a lot of business partners. I've done a lot of deals, and I'm not stating, and again, we'll talk about if you're just brand new and have never done a deal in a second, but he did a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of heavy work. And even in an environment today where deals are hard to come by, they're still falling in his lap. He's selling real estate because he's a realtor. He's doing some construction jobs for other investors. He's still flipping houses. He's still doing his rental stuff. He's got momentum. He's in the game. He's in the industry. Like he's active. He's present. He's doing things, right? He's not making excuses for it. So I was glad to hear that. And I think momentum is kind of everything. Like, let's say somebody's just starting out. Let's start here, Ian. Let's say somebody's starting out and they're just getting into the real estate business. Maybe they've done a deal, maybe they don't. Like, define to them how to start momentum, how to start. And let's keep in mind what a momentum is. It's kind of like a snowball. You know, one of Ian and my favorite book is The Snowball by Warren Buffett. Read the book if you haven't. It's great. But think about what a snowball is, right? It starts small, right? You're this little bitty snowball, and you're out there, and then you're creating momentum and you're growing, and the snowball gets bigger, right? You meet more realtors, you meet more sellers, you meet more buyers, you meet more wholesalers, you meet whatever. You create partnerships, you raise private capital, and it's growing. Well, there's a point of this snowball that you couldn't stop the snowball from happening and from growing and from succeeding, even if you wanted to. You know, I remember years ago, maybe mid 2000s, when I was getting into the business, probably like 04 or whatever. I went to this Dave Lindahl event. And I don't know if you know Dave Lindahl, but he's a big multifamily investor. And he stood up on stage, and this is cheesy, and I get it, but like I had an aha moment there. He stood up on stage, and he had a bunch of checks in his hands, right? And he waved around these checks. And he goes, I don't even know where these checks came from. They're from my rental properties. I can't stop these checks from coming in, even if I wanted to. And like, that was like, I want that. I want checks coming in from everywhere. And that's what it is. It's relationships, and it's partners, and it's private lenders, and it's deals. So, okay, Ian, back to my question for you. So let's say you're just starting out, maybe you've done a deal, maybe you haven't, and you want to start creating momentum so you can really start kind of expanding and getting into this business in a big way. Like, where does someone get started?
I think the biggest thing is, and it's actually really hard right now. So I would actually change it up for the current times, but just straight up networking. Before you used to be able to go to all the different events, get out there, shake hands, talk to people. That's how it started for me. Had I not taken action to go with this guy to something completely not real estate related, I would have never met the other gentleman who taught me the business and got me to where I am today. So what would I do in today's world where we don't really have events? We have online networking. We have all these different things. There's a ton of Facebook communities out there. There's REINetworks.com. There's a ton of different opportunities out there to get yourself out there and connect. I know it's a little bit hard now because everything's digitally. That's where I would start. I would start in all the different communities, forums, whatever it may be, is get out there, post, and talk to people about real estate. Tell people at your job that you're in investing in real estate. Don't be shy about what you're doing. Talk to every single person you can. And for every person that's trying to beat you down and say real estate, all these horror stories, there'll be tenfold as many people that have good stories. And that's how you create momentum. That's how you start to create this little thing called momentum. At some point, you're going to have to do a deal. But that's personally what I would do. I would get out there and I would network. And it's very easy nowadays to jump on the internet and start talking to people and just take action immediately. That's where I would start.
And it's not just meetup groups or virtual meetups or podcasts or things like that. Obviously, the education part's important, but like real estate agents, right? Speaking to multiple real estate agents, speaking to people in the mortgage industry, speaking to appraisers, speaking to other real estate investors, speaking to auctioneers, like being present. Actually, it's interesting. The same guy from this podcast that I heard earlier said something else that was interesting. He said he was trying to really get into a market. He said he had never done it. He didn't do a deal for 2 years, but he went to every auction. He went to every meetup group. He did everything, right? Because he wanted to make himself known. People knew where he was. So when he got started and he was ready to go, he could jump up on top, right? And he had relationships. He knew which wholesalers were buying properties through, trustee auctions every week, right? It was his way to do it. He created good habits. I think habits are important. Like you create good habits of doing stuff. This whole business goes back to marketing. And too many real estate investors are lazy or don't realize that this business isn't made on MLS. MLS is a consumer platform. The multiple listing is a consumer platform to buy and sell real estate. Can you buy properties on MLS? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we're in an environment like we are now, MLS is hard to buy opportunities. It just doesn't exist, right now. Just like it didn't exist in 07 or 08, 06, 07, 08, or even further back from that, right? You got to do more than that, right? So it's important to do what you got to do. Do what you got to do to find opportunities. Do the marketing, right? I mean, in general, too many real estate investors don't treat this business as a business. That's what it is, right? There's no hey, I want to be a real estate investor. Cool. I'm going to go set up my entity. I'm going to go raise my hand and say I'm a real estate investor. Well, guess what? You're not going to do business. That's just what it is. Create a business plan. Figure out a way to create relationships with buyers and sellers and lenders and everybody. Let's talk about this phone call we just had.
Right. Well, and it relates back to what you were talking about, right? Like this phone call we just had with another real estate investor. He was talking about how, he's done a little bit of everything, but his number one thing he's able to do is connect people, and he's able to monetize that connection. So if you're in real estate and you don't really know how to get involved, or you want to get involved in real estate, you don't really know how to get involved, but there's a buyer and there's a seller and you can connect them, there's a possibility to make a fee. If there's a buyer and a seller and there's enough room on the buyer's side that you can get involved in the deal, which this gentleman's doing, he's able to insert himself into all these little different deals. And without knowing it, he's creating momentum because he's creating diversification in his portfolio. He's seeing multiple different operators do deals, which ultimately led me connecting him to Jason, who is now going to create hopefully more momentum for him to say, hey, if you have other opportunities, there's a possibility that we could lend on these deals and we could work hand in hand. And by making those connections, making those connections, that's where a lot of people, and I think the internet today, not to get too political here, is the internet today actually destroys some of these relationships. People take these things for granted. People don't pick up the phone anymore. There for a while, a lot of people always ask, well, how do you find all these banks? Pick the phone up and call and tell everybody, what's the problem you're having right now? Don't be embarrassed by your problem, right? The guy that we just had the call with, his problem was he's getting fed too many deals and doesn't have enough capital to lend out. So what is he doing? He's utilizing Jason's network of capital and able to create a business relationship, which will ultimately create him more momentum. Had he never said anything to me at this conference this past weekend that he had this issue, I would have never been able to connect them. So
yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You know the little secret to raising private capital? I mean, I'm curious to know how other people raise private capital. But private capital, number one, is not that hard to raise. But you gotta put in the real heavy work and create a relationship. Anyone who asks me how to raise private capital, somebody who lends Ian money is not going to lend me money, and it's not going to lend you listening or watching this, right? My capital investors, Ian could have my list of capital investors. They're not going to necessarily lend him money. I could have his list of capital investors. They're not going to lend me money. These are relationships that were created over and over and over and over and over. This is a business. It doesn't happen overnight. If you're looking for immediate satisfaction to flip a house to make a quick buck, and that's all you're looking for, that's all you're going to get. Like not much. It's not gonna be it. Everyone that we know that we build relationships with, these are long-standing relationships to do deals with over and over and over. I've done 100 loans for the same real estate investor. You know what that average value per client equals? Hundreds of thousands of dollars from one relationship. That's how it is. It's the same thing. You know, how many people out there have bought a property from a distressed seller, and then that distressed seller referred them friends, family, things like that? I mean, most of us use maybe one realtor or multiple or a few realtors. How many houses have you sold with one realtor, Ian? Tons and tons and tons and tons. You know, how many properties have you bought from the same wholesaler? Tons and tons and tons and tons. As a wholesaler, how many properties have they sold to the same buyer? Tons and tons and tons. That's how it works. It's a long play relationship. And I know that everyone thinks private capital and raising private capital is a hot topic, so I have no problem talking about that. You know, those relationships are in your sphere of influence to begin with, right? We didn't have any of our own capital when we started Hard Money Bankers. We didn't even know anybody with money when we started Hard Money Bankers. We reached out to our sphere of influence. This is what we're doing. This is what we're trying to raise. This is how it's structured. You know, this is what we're going to be doing, and things like that. And it grew. And keep in mind, the purpose of a snowball is, guess what? I have 2 investors on year 1. Well, now maybe I have 4 investors on year 2, right? And then 8, and 16, and 32. And then a few years later, it's like, wow, you got tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of private capital. But like, you gotta follow that formula with everybody.
It's not even, dude, it's not just capital. It's everything. It's houses, it's deals, it's contractors, it's building suppliers, it's banks, it's everything. If you don't verbalize what you need or what you're looking for, or ask other people for help, one of the best ways we found one of our contractors was one of our really good guys. We said, hey man, you have anyone else? He's like, well, I'm so afraid I'm going to lose work. I'm like, dude, you have enough work. We promise you, you're number one as of right now. There's more than enough work for you. We need a second guy. Rather than give you more work and set you up for failure, do you have another guy that we can utilize? And we did that. Now we had 2 crews that had the same common interest, and we were able to do that many more properties, right? And I think a lot of people get scared of the abundance, and they have this very limiting mind belief that, like, well, if I help this person out or I help that person out, there's gonna be an issue. Guess what? Your banker's out marketing for new clients. I promise you, you're not gonna lose them, because the guy that's looking for that bank or that gal that's looking for the bank is going to find a bank either way. Do you want to help your boy out and get them to generate more business? Look, that guy was going to go do 1,000 deals, whether you put him in touch with that bank or not. Do you want to help your boy out or your girl out and say, hey, listen, you need deals, let's go. Interesting happened this weekend. We were out at a conference. We were golfing. We got rained out. A few guys that went golfing, we went out driving for dollars, made a few phone calls on some properties that we saw. Sounds like one of them might have some momentum behind it. But there you go. There's another prime example. I don't need another deal, but if I can help these guys out to get into this deal and we can grow together, guess what? If they ever come across a deal that fits in my wheelhouse, I would assume the first phone call is probably going to be me or one of the other guys in that group that was there that day, just by helping other people out. And, you know, it's hard when you're in it every day. You don't think you have quote unquote momentum, or you don't think that you have a value add or something to give back. But when you really start to think about it, what you're really, really good at, I guarantee someone else out there is struggling with it. And if you reach out and you start to help people, it'll go a really, really long way.
Yeah, provide value full time. Provide value. I mean, I got a call yesterday from a buddy of mine that has a project that needs to get developed. I can't personally help him besides refer him to somebody. Referred him to somebody with no strings attached. I wasn't like, hey, let's work out this deal and pay me, blah blah blah. Referred it. He was like, hey, listen, if we can help it, maybe there's a way that I can get myself involved and make money at it. That's not the expectation. I don't care. It's not in my core business model anyways, right? But provide value by that. If you're known as the industry expert, you're going to get people to reach out to you. That's what it is. If you're known as like whatever, the Columbia, Maryland real estate expert, people are going to call you about, selling a house for them, buying a house for them, you buying their house, whatever it is. Like that's how it is. It's branding, it's marketing, it's providing value over and over and over. And I'm not, again, everyone has seen themselves have seen people whore themselves out kind of on social, and that's okay if it's done tactfully in the right way. Everyone knows that someone will post the same thing on 10 different platforms, the exact same thing, but provide no value, right? It's just like a digital billboard advertisement. That's not what people want, right? Instead, go on a forum, go on a social media platform, go on and comment value of like, hey, who's this person, that you would have for this particular case. Provide value, because people are going to come back to you over and over and over because of that.
And it's the same adage of like good deals find good money, or good money finds good deals. It's the same thing. That's all momentum. That's all marketing, right? Like you're out there doing the right thing, and some higher being, whatever you want to believe in, is like, hey man, like this is going to work out for you because you have a really good deal. So it's going to be really easy to find money. Our largest deal to date, that was the easiest it was to raise capital for it. And it was just shy of a $2 million capital raise. And it was very easy because we had momentum with our other investors. We had proof of concept. We had a really good deal on our hands that everybody could conceptualize without having to guess where it's going to end up. It wasn't marginal. It wasn't based on debt. It was based on the core principles of that deal. And all this stuff, it all relates. And, the deeper we get into it, the more it's like, a lot of this stuff starts to make sense. We have a saying around the firehouse because we see some bad stuff. Bad things happen to bad people. And it's exactly the opposite. Good things happen to good people. Good things happen to good deals, right? So what side of that fence do you want to be on? That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and you know what? Your point. You know what? That's a good point. And when it rains, it pours in both different directions. Dude, there's months that we'll have a really slow month, and it's just like one deal falls out after the next one and the next one and the next one, and you get down, right? And on the next month, my partner Chris is always like, hey, it's all right that we had a bad month, because if you look at it as like a trailing 12, like the last 12 months, everything always equals the same. And then the next month will just be a killer month. And it's just like, all of a sudden I wake up and I got, 3 deals ready to go, right? So like, that's just what it is. But like, you got to keep momentum. You cannot stop. The momentum is such a key word, and it's come up in so many conversations with so many people. People are just thrown in the towel, be like, yeah, I'm going to take some time off right now. Oh, it's the holidays, I'm going to take some time off. Like, you could still keep momentum without having to be like grinding all the time. Like, just, be in the conversation, right? Be involved, provide value to people.
Well, let's talk about the beginning. If you really want to talk about that, how many people at the start of the coronavirus was like shutdown mode? I'm scared, right? Like, I'm not buying anything else. I can respect that. None of us knew where it was going. But what did we talk about at the very, very beginning? And I think me and Jay talked about it a lot. We were hot on it. That was the time to reorganize your business, get ready to go, because something else is about to happen. You're going to repurpose yourself. We're going to do a book review here shortly on Atlas Shrugged, because we all just finished it up in the first quarter. I'll give you sneak peek alert, whatever, spoiler alert, turn it off if you don't want to hear about it. But they talk about being a producer, and that's what we are. That if you look at the coronavirus, if I look what I did in the coronavirus pandemic in that trailing 12 to where we are today, and I know it's not over, we've had more exponential growth during this time frame than we did at any other point in our investing careers. And that goes back to what we've done, the momentum that we had going into this, that when something bad's about to happen or something's going to be change the trajectory of what we're doing, and it smacks a bunch of people in the face, we're set up to ready to rock and roll. And you can go back and review some old episodes, because I know we talked about that. I felt like we were talking about it every day. We're still talking about it, beat that horse dead. So, but
dude, and also, like, it's no secret that we're all cautious about where the market is right now, and how some ticks in some interest rates or some other softening of the market could really, change things up. This is the time that you want momentum, right? This is the time you want momentum. During a down market, you can just go on MLS, find a deal, and flip a house on Easy Street, right? But you got to get through. You got to get through a whirlwind and a market cycle, right? This is the time to have that momentum, because if you're a real estate investor doing deals, you can't just not do any deals, right? And there's no need to. You could be at any part of the market cycle. There's still an opportunity to buy a deal. There's still an opportunity. You might have to adjust kind of your purchase price and your terms and stuff, but we could be here, we could be here, we could be here. There's always a good opportunity. But if you have no momentum at all, you're going to be like you're going to be in a point of a market cycle that you're not going to be able to do anything with. You're not going to be able to get your bank financing. And keep in mind, when banks stop lending, that doesn't mean they stop lending to everybody, right? You could still get bank financing, even in a downturn market on an investment real estate property, if you have the proper credentials, the proper down payment, things like that. All of that's still possible, right? So I don't know. I don't know why the term momentum hits me so hard. I just feel like a lot of real estate investors don't have the core fundamentals and the systems in place, especially right now as the market cycle will change. And you got to get over the hump, right? You got to get over the hump. You don't want to get weaned out because you don't have momentum kind of going into this next market cycle.
Yeah, and if you're watching this, this is the start of Q2. If you followed us along the Atlas Shrug Challenge, I challenge you for Q2 to go out and read the Snowball Effect, Warren Buffett's autobiography. I don't know if it was autobiography or whatever it was, but I think someone else wrote it. Yeah, okay, there you go. Go out and read that, and to watch that guy go from literally nothing, picking up tickets at horse racing parks, to the $1 billion he's worth, and watch the trajectory of his net worth grow and how it's exponential in the later parts of his life. That, I think, is why momentum resonates so much with me and you. It resonates so much because of the marketing stuff that we try to do separately, individually in our own businesses. And just knowing the work that we put in today is going to be 10x tomorrow. And that's super powerful stuff. So I challenge you, if you really find value in this podcast, go out, read the Snowball Effect, let us know how it's going. Find me at EdenEquityWarehouse.com. I'll gladly, or you can talk about it on REINetworks.com.
It's just Snowball. It's not Snowball Effect.
Okay, the Snowball, just like a Warren Buffett Snowball. You'll find the book. It is ridiculous.
I'm chatting it right here. Well, one of the big, and this isn't a, hold on. This is what, hold on, where is this? Yeah, that's the link. Snowball Warren Buffett. So anyways, I put it in the chat.
Yeah.
But like one of my biggest takeaways from that, which started in the middle when his friends were making fun of him because he made a good amount of money. He made $1,000, and in his head, $1,000 to him was equivalent to him having $10,000, because he knows the power of the snowball and compound interest and what he could do with it. So like he had something to buy, and it was like, I don't want to buy this. It cost me $10,000, and they're like, no, it's only cost $1,000. And he goes, he's like, no, $1,000 to me is worth $10,000 tomorrow, which is true. Now take 10,000 is worth 100, or 100,000 worth $1 million, or $1 million worth 10 million. Like, you're talking real money, real money. So it's interesting how that concept goes, and it's true. Like, $1,000, whatever. It may not seem like a lot, but you invest that through compound interest. You invest it as a down payment into a real estate deal. You invest that passively into like an apartment syndication, whatever it is. I'm not saying it turns into $10,000 overnight, but over time it does, right? And you're planting trees everywhere. You're planting trees with assets. You're planting trees with relationships. I mean, there's loans that I've done today that I gave value to the borrower 10 years ago. 10 years ago, right? There's relationships and projects that we've been involved in that took tons and tons and tons. Listen, sometimes, a seller or a seller will call you today and you buy a property from them tomorrow, right? That happens. But there's also a time that they're not ready and you're building relationships over and over and over. It's not just about the dollars growing. It's about relationships. So, all right. Anyways, I think people are sick and tired of us talking about the snowball and momentum, but I love the topic.
And we have, if you guys aren't signed up for our Wednesday night meetup, you know where to find us, or Jay will post a link afterwards. We have a super special guest for this month, third Wednesday, April 21st. It's going to be a very, very good one.
Let's just tell everybody the topic because it's been a hot topic.
Yeah, so it's going to be AJ Osborne. He's going to get on, and we're going to discuss self-storage. He's a very well-versed guy in producing income passively. He's got some cool conversion projects going on. It's been a hot asset class recently, and guess what? There you go, momentum, hot asset class. Hey, man, we have this podcast. He's willing to jump on. So that's momentum in work in real time. So April 20th.
You're right.
6:45 p.m.
If you want to finish this conversation or any other conversation, or just ask questions in general, head over to reinetworks.com. You're completely free to access everything in REI Networks. Super cool social platform just for real estate investors and real estate professionals, anything in real estate in general. So cool. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's Real Estate Reserve podcast. We'll see everybody next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.